Hey, everybody, this is Tim Shaw, and we've got a great show for you tonight. I have one of my favorite all time people on. You know what? Yeah, I do have a lot of favorite all time people, but this guest is beyond all favorite. I would say she is stratospheric in the favorite realm. That's the way I'm gonna do it. So, you know what? I'm bringing her on without like any more me just prattling on like an old washerwoman. Ready for? Oh my God. Our guest tonight is she's an accomplished paranormal investigator who has appeared on what else? Paranormal State, Real Fear, and actually there was two episodes of Real Fear, and it was phenomenal. And I wish she would do it again. Hint, hint. Because there's an old bald guy out there with his thumb out saying, "I will do readings for like food." That's what I'll be doing. Paranormal Lockdown, of course, Haunted Salem Live, and you know what? One of my favorite all-time shows, only because I was on it. Who else? Portals to Hell Scene on the Discovery Channel. Guys, I have to introduce one of the nicest people out there. And you know what? I got to tell you something. Beyond all that, she's a filmmaker, she's a content creator, and she's a rock goddess. I'm just going to tell you that right now. She's a rock goddess. I'm going to tell you right now. And for as long as I've known her, I've called her America's sweetheart. Please, please welcome to the Black Cat Lounge, Katrina Weidman. Hey, Kat, how are
Uh,
you? It's so good to see you.
it's good to see you too. How you doing?
I can't complain. Kat. You know what? Wait, that was good. Wait a minute. That was pretty good. That reminds me of my old days when I used to take peyote, but that's another story. That we don't want to talk about that.
Do.
No, I don't know. I think we've talked about enough crazy things over the years. Kat, you know what? It is so great to see you, and you know, on I will say that it just wasn't the same when I was working on a project and you weren't there. And I was so worried that, but I understand, all of us got it and, you
Yeah.
know, got the crud or no, as I like to refer to it as the plague.
Yeah.
But it's so great to see you. And what have you been up to? Oh my God. I cannot believe the amount of things that you do. Everybody says, Tim, you're a retired old fart. And you are like crazy. Well, you know what, Kat? You're not old, you're not a fart, and yeah, you are crazy, but you are just like constantly on the move. What have you been up to now? I mean, it's wow, it's insane.
Yeah. Well, let me see. What month are we in? March. So we wrapped Portals to Hell. Uh,
Hmm.
and then I did end up getting sick, as you said, I got the crud. So that took me out for like a complete month of just
Wow,
not being
that
able
sucks.
to
Yeah.
normally, you know. So then what else? Then we moved. And
Oh, congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that.
yeah, so we moved to a new town, which we really, really like, and just taking care of like other projects. So, like you said, I also do music, so I've been working on a couple singles and all the material for that. So
That's
that
awesome.
that's been a big, big chunk of time. Very grateful for it though, because it's been a long time. I stepped away from it on and off, you know.
Well, you got to understand. You are Katrina Weed, after all. After all, you are now no longer an individual, you're a commodity, and people just love you. And it was so funny because when I announced that you were coming on the show, oh my God. I mean, I'm going to right off the bat, the outpouring of love, not just from me, because you know that I am like your number one fanboy out there, well, fan guy, because I'm old, but
Yeah, man.
but I mean, the outpouring of love, people just absolutely adore you, and I am so glad. What's there not to adore? Let's so you know, people have sent me in some questions, so I'd
Oh,
like
cool.
to jump in on those questions if that's all right with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, now, okay. Oh, this is from me. This is from me,
Oh,
and I actually stalked you today. I went and no, but like I no, normally stalk you, but that's terrible. People hear that and it's like they get the wrong impression. I researched you today, and that sounds a little bit more palatable. You know what? I was reading your bio,
Mm.
And I have to say, wow, no wonder you and I kind of get along, because I did not know this. You're a third grade teacher, said that you would not really amount to anything. You'd never get a job.
Yep.
Holy crap. I mean,
Yep.
first of all, that's scarring. That's
Yep.
scarring, because I know back in the day, see, I went to a parochial school, so I had the Felician nuns there that were like, they could hit you with a counter brush or that rope that they used to tie around their waist. Like, you know, you could be doing something in the corner and they could nail you right in the back of the head. So they
Yeah.
were brutal. And that's pretty much the way that they treated a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I got to ask you this. How, I mean, did that affect you deeply for the longest time? Because I know it did me until, finally I just said the hell with it. And I just would stop worrying about what other people thought of me.
Yeah. So the story behind it was in third grade, that's when we started switching for other subjects. So like we would in my school, we would always switch for like art and music and all that stuff. But third grade is when we started switching for more academic classes. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a different math teacher than my regular teacher. And there were like 2 days in a row where I was sick. And apparently those were the 2 days where they're like, we're going to teach everything. So
Oh,
they taught like how to count, to tell time, how to count money. And I missed it all. So when I came back to school, I was already really shy in front of adults. So I was already kind of like hesitant to raise my hand in class. I was just kind of shy. And she called on me like twice in a row and I didn't know the answers. And because I hadn't been there. And so when class ended, she pulled me aside into the hallway. I'll never forget it because I was little, I was third grade. She was like a giant to me. And she
mm-hmm.
bent over, pointing her finger at me and was like, you are never going to amount to anything. Nobody will ever hire you for a job. How do you ever expect to get ahead in this world? Like that kind
In
of
third grade.
like 8. And
Wow.
so I remember books in hands, running down the hallway crying. And when I got home, I told my mom. My mom was obviously like really pissed off. And at that time, we had moved. So I had entered that school new as a first grader, which isn't bad, like because everybody's starting the school anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I was really, really shy around adults. So they put me in a bunch of special classes to begin with because I was so scared to like raise my hand and say anything. So they kind of thought
Mm-hmm.
I needed extra help. And so I already had that against me that was in my head of like, oh, I'm not smart. I'm not like the other kids. And then this woman said what she said to me. So that just like kind of reaffirmed what I was already feeling. And it stayed with me a really long time. Luckily, and thank God for this teacher. And I looked her up a couple of years ago because I wanted to send her a thank you note, but unfortunately she passed away. But my next teacher, she was keen on to what was going on with me. She realized I didn't need the extra support, that I was just really shy. And so she worked with me one-on-one. And by 5th grade, I was in all the normal classes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but the words of that other teacher definitely stayed with me. And I kind of had this in the back of my head, this feeling like I wasn't good enough academically. So, especially
Mm-hmm.
high and high school, I would do really, really well the first half of any class. And then I would just like kind of, I don't know, I was bored. I didn't see the point of it. I'm like, what does this matter? Like, I don't know. And so I would like bomb the second half of all my classes and barely graduated high school. That was a big thing. Almost didn't make it to graduation. But it
See,
was,
that's why I love you, Kat, because I am so close to that.
yeah, it was. And also like middle school graduation, almost didn't make it to that one either. But it really wasn't until college that I realized that all those feelings I had were just bullshit, and
Mm-hmm.
that they were from another person's perspective, and that I was smart and that I could do well academically. And I remember when I was looking to go to Penn State, all these people were like, you're never going to get in there. Because even though it's a state school, it was still a really competitive state school. And so I remember I went to my community college. I'm like, I want to go to Penn State. And they're like, you don't have the grades. You're never going to get in. And I'm like, well, can't I like work for that? Can't I just like do the hard work and then go? And they like refused to help me as far as like figuring out what classes I needed to go there. So they like handed me a book and they're like, here, if you want to try, this is the book you need. And so worked my butt off and went. And the highest GPA I ended up having was like a 3.9. Never made it to a 4.0, but 3.9.
3.9. I never got a 3.9 anywhere.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, it definitely dwindled as I went to Penn State, which is like #2 party school in America.
Yeah.
But, you know, I took my academic career really seriously. And because it's like kind of the first time in my life, I realized I could do that. And I could, like, there was something there for me to work towards. I never really felt that before. So
that's awesome.
That's the story.
Wow. You know, I mean, because I mean, I'll be honest with you, I came from a different generation. So their idea of like fixing you was burying you in occupational schools.
Mm.
You know, that was their idea of doing it. And I remember I went to the guidance counselor and said, I'd like to take a language. And the guy looked at me like I had 3 eyes and he goes, why?
Yeah.
I said, well, in case I want to, you know, continue on to maybe college or something. And he just looked at me and went, you must have a girlfriend in one of the classes. That's all. That's what he said. And you know, it was funny. And it was the other thing is your grades will never be good enough. And I stayed. I didn't go back. I didn't go back to school until later on. But by then I realized the whole secret to going back to college was being able to go and fill out the financial forms. That's pretty much that was what I realized at that time. So I mean that's how I got through it. Hey, I've got a question from my good friend Nicole Walton. Nicole Walton is the news director for NPR station up in Marquette, Michigan, and she's a big fan of yours, and I love her to death. She's a great person. How has your theater background helped you in this field, if at all?
So yeah, that was my so for those that don't know, there was no program to study paranormal, you know, like as far as academic, you know, you couldn't get a degree in it here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied music as my first degree. My second degree is theater performance, aka acting. So how has that helped me? Well, I think I was never shy to be in front of the camera. So that's the thing. Even though I was a shy kid, I never had a problem being on stage. Like that was the only place I ever felt comfortable. I felt like I could be outgoing there. I could be talkative there. I just never had an issue with it. So when I joined PRS, which was the club that Paranormal State is based off of, I joined that and they had a training program. And then they were having like auditions. And I put that in air quotes because they weren't auditions like, here's a script, because it wasn't a scripted show, regardless of what some naysayers will say. But literally the audition was, we're going to put a camera in front of you and ask questions and see how you are on camera. And I just never had a problem, you know, doing that. So I think if anything, it just kind of helped me not be shy around a camera crew. And it was just a thing of like, I could do the work without having to worry about how I'm coming off on camera, because it never made me nervous, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Also, the other side of it was a little fun story. I've talked about it a couple times over the years, but originally when Paranormal State started, if you go back and watch the beginning credits, there's you know, they label us each with something. So it's like Heather's the documentarian and Elfie's the occultist. And originally they had labeled me the psychic because I had disclosed that I've had all these experiences with like dreams coming true or just knowing things, situations that I don't know how I know. And I never claimed to be a psychic. They were just like, oh, that's what she is. She's a psychic. And when I found out about it, I was like, no. Like, you guys cannot label me that. I don't claim to be a psychic. That is not my thing. I'm an investigator, you know, and it caused a big stir, apparently. And but I became the interviewer because that's where I naturally, just from doing the work, that's where I naturally fit in. And I think that really comes from my theater background, honestly, because theater, when you study acting, especially, it's all about connection and it's all about everybody's internal needs and wants and what drives us as people. if you have good acting teachers, that's what they teach you. And so in my experience, my background in acting has been all about connection and psychology, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just meeting people and being able to connect on a deeper level, has really helped me as far as being an investigator and interviewing people in a genuine way, and hearing their stories and having them feel comfortable to tell me what those stories are. So I think that's really where those two factors have really helped.
I think you really excelled at that.
Thank
But, Ms. Weidman,
Oh, I have to tell you, it's Weidman.
why do I always call you Weidman?
I don't know. I think
I always called you Weidman. That's why Weidman. Anyway, Weidman. I'll just every time I see you now, I'm just gonna go, Weidman, how are you? No, I won't do that. But you know, you mentioned about being a psychic
Mm,
and that you're not a psychic.
yeah.
But I beg to differ with you because I've seen you in action and you get a lot of that gut reaction. I see you sometimes I forget. I think when we were together, and I can mention this because it was season 2, Hotel Monte Vista. I
Yeah.
remember you down in that basement, and right. I saw. I don't know if I can't remember if I saw something or I got the impression of something, whatever. And I saw your stomach. You're just like, you're like flexing your stomach, and it was like you're holding. It was like you're holding something down. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh, she's got it. she feels the same thing I do. Is
Yeah.
this something that you get a lot of, or do you want to cultivate this at all, or are you happy just the way you are?
No, I think it's something I want to work on, but and I have those instinctual things that happen, but I think as far as me being an investigator, I use it as a tool. So I don't necessarily use it as like, I'm the
Mm-hmm.
psych be able to tell you everything. Like that's not what I do. And would I want to do that at some point? I don't think so. Who the F knows though, life is crazy.
Exactly. And listen, and it's my show. You can say fuck on my show
Okay.
if you want.
But it's like, who would have thought I'd be a paranormal investigator when I was like 6? That wasn't even a job. So I try not to rule out things where I'm like, I'm never going to do that because I don't really know. But I like being an objective investigator, meaning just like looking at everything, taking in all the tools that we have to use right now and piecing together things as best as we can today, which we all know it's an ever evolving field. So it can change.
Right.
As far as the psychic stuff go, I definitely use it to help guide me on where I feel like I should be in that moment. Or it's interesting, especially when I'm interviewing people, I'll get hits about them. So I kind of know, I think it aids me in how to have a better conversation with them.
Right.
And I think as far as developing it, there's been many points where I've delved into it and like really weird stuff would happen. So I would kind of just push away from it. There was one, it was like in 07, 08 in that time frame. And I was actively working on it. And it was a lot of meditation at the time, which I do regularly now. I do meditate like every day. But this was like an active meditation to open up like your psychic senses or something. And I was having just an influx of all these crazy dreams that were coming true. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Like maybe I should just like leave this for now. I'll come back to it. So yeah. So I mean, it's definitely something I want to develop, but I don't know if I would ever label myself that way.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Everybody's got it. You've got it to a higher degree than a lot of people. I think also because of the fact it really has been working with you because of what you have been doing, the interest, getting out there, boots on the ground, that sort of thing. It kind of rubs off no matter what you're going to do. But
yes,
I have to tell you the truth. I never wanted to be a medium. I still don't want to be a medium. I don't. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care about it. Never wanted to be in. That was something I just was like, no, I don't want to do that. But the calling was there, and I was in the right place at the right time, and I got a couple good teachers. That's what it
Yeah.
was. And of course, I mean, having a lot of influence when I was a kid, that kind of put a background on it. But it's when you're ready for the unfoldment process, you're unready for the unfoldment process. And we have my buddy who's a cigar roller here, my buddy Jim. He wants to know, how was it to work with Chip Chip Coffee? The no Chip is the love Chip.
Yeah.
And did he teach you a lot?
Oh, Chip has taught me a lot, and not just. I have learned some of the dirtiest jokes I've ever known from
Oh
Chip.
my gosh.
No, Chip is great, and we all called him on Paranormal State. We called him Unky Chip or Uncle Chip because he really was. He was like an uncle to all of us, and he's a very warm, loving person, and he's
Mhm.
when you meet him, you feel like you've known him
Yes,
your
I
whole life,
agree.
like a best friend that you just you haven't seen in 20 years, and you guys are picking up where you left off. As far as working with him, actually, it was funny because he always says to me what you're talking about with me, that like, Katrina, your sensitivity is dialed up more than the average person. Like you should work
Yeah.
on that, and he has told me that from the very beginning. And in '09, we did a case, and he was like, he was trying mediumship. So he wasn't just doing a psychic reading. He's like, I'm going to connect in a deeper way. And he's like, Katrina, I want you to come with me and I want you to see what you get. And I was like, Chip, I don't do that. I've never done that. It's just like these things happen. I don't know why. And I can't control them. And he was just like, just try it with me. And it was a case involving a woman who had taken her own life. The family was concerned that there was an energy that made her do it. Now, I was the case manager at the time, meaning that I did interview the family. So I had knowledge of certain things.
Mhm.
From my understanding, she was very, very depressed. And our thoughts at the time was that her taking her own life was a byproduct of things that were going on in her life, not a spirit, you know. So when we sat in her old room and I was handed a couple of her items, her personal items. And immediately I started getting what was the first thing that happened? That happened late. Oh, the first thing that happened, I started getting a word in my head. So it was like my own voice, but I had no control over it.
Mhm.
I kept saying Jimmy, 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 Jimmy over and over and over again. And at the time we had an investigator named Jimmy. And so I'm like, I don't know why I'm thinking about Jimmy, but Jimmy keeps coming up. That was her son's name. I did not know that. Then I started getting physical sensations. I started feeling like I was floating, and I knew she had ended up in water. So I assumed that was like my own knowledge coming into play,
Right. That can happen because I know myself, if I have to go and do a reading for somebody that I know,
Yeah.
I have to go and automatic, if I say something that I might know, I want to put it out there and say it's an observation because I
Right.
know and you want to be honest because too many people are looking for the sensational and they trick
Yeah.
themselves into it. And I think that's great because you just admitted, I knew a little bit of this stuff. So that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah.
See, Kat, you're just an easy student. That's all there is to it. You really know you know your stuff. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I
I'm fascinated by this whole story.
Yeah. So I started feeling like I was floating, and then my whole face started getting numb. Like it was like like I was freezing. What I
Hmm.
didn't know, she had passed in the summer. What I did not know at that time was that the temperatures in the water had dipped to freezing levels that day for whatever reason. So I did not know that. And then it turned into, I started getting the word high, HIGH,
Hmm.
over and over and over again. I had no idea why. What I found
Wow.
later, was the story I had originally of how she took her life wasn't the full story. So what they had told me was that she like went into the water and she perished. This full story after I had this experience was that she had taken a bunch of her pills and went into the water and waited until she like passed out, and then she drowned. Um, and I think overdose. I'm not sure what officially was the official cause of death, but so there were things that were happening that I didn't know about at the time, and
Hmm.
it was such a bizarre experience because I had never had that happen where it's like you hear this voice in your head that you have no control over. And it's just like repeating. It was so urgent. Um, I have not had that happen since. I haven't tried, but that was with Chip, and he like made me do. He's like, "You're doing this," and I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, Unky Chip." So, yeah. So that was my experience with Chip, kind of pushing me out there.
See, you know what? That is, I mean, my mentor actually did the same thing to me.
Mm,
And she was tough, and I love her to death, and I thank her so much every day that when I do that, she pushed me to that level. Chip and I are pretty much on that same level when it comes to students. You have to push them out. Sometimes you have to be you got to be the mama bird, and you got to put them out of the nest, because
yeah,
otherwise you're not going to fly. And it's so scary, because I remember the first missing person case I ever worked. It was very scary, and you're getting these things that you don't understand. You're getting impressions. And my God, you sit there and go, what? What? And it means nothing, because it's disjointed.
yeah,
And it's not until you actually step away from it and you kind of like you read the bio, and then you kind of fill in the blanks and you go, oh, I understand that. And I have a question from my friend Andrea. Speaking of, I have a throwback question. What happened to the girl, if you know, from the IM6 episode of Paranormal State? That one stuck with me, and she goes bad, bad.
yeah, yeah. So I haven't spoken to Laura in years, but I am friends with two of her family members, just like via online social media.
Hmm.
From what I understand, they're doing good.
Good.
But trying to think the last update that I had. I mean, it would have been years ago, like over 10 years ago, because I was the case manager for PRS. As long as I was with them, I would follow up with our previous clients. And, some of them never wanted to visit this again. It was like a period,
Hmm.
like, I'm done, it's over. Other people kept in touch with us. And Laura's mom, at one point, she called me, and it was after our second visit. And she had said there was a point where Chip wrote down like 6 names that he got. And I guess we never disclosed that to the family at the time. She didn't see the list until the episode aired. And she told me that one of those names rung a bell for her. And she didn't know why. And she started looking through things, and then it hit her. And she went to Laura's baby book. And when Laura was a kid, she had an imaginary friend with that name.
Wow.
And that friend would
That's cool.
things. And yeah. So that was probably the last full update I've had on them. But as far as I know, they're okay.
And I'll be honest with you, that one, I did like Paranormal State because it was a whole different way of really working within the genre.
Yeah.
So I mean, I thought I really enjoyed it. A lot of it was a little bit too Christian for me, because because you know how I am.
Yeah.
But
Oh, well, and that's the thing too. Everybody in our group was a different religion.
yeah,
I mean, we had agnostics, we had
yes,
pagans, we had Christians. It I think why it came off so Christian is because we always went with what our client's belief system was,
right.
and the majority of them
Are always yes, are Christian. And I know myself, Kat, whenever I'm doing cleansings, whenever we're doing these consultations, you always have to look at that. And that's
uh,
but I loved it because of the fact that it brought in a religious atmosphere to it, more than just a secular one. Because after a while it's like, hey, look, Kat, there's a ghost behind you. Oh, and that's pretty much what they were up until that came on. And I thought that was great. Hey, I want to ask you this. As a woman in the field,
mhm.
and I'll be honest with you, this field is funny, because the metaphysical field and a lot of the occult sciences, we'll just say the traditions, they are very feminine orientated. Paranormal can be pretty overwhelmingly man orientated, which, like, I really have a problem with that, because you need that balance. As a woman in the field, have you really found particular problems with breaking that, the old boys network? And if so, what would you say is the number one thing that you would tell someone, let's say a younger lady who is breaking into it now
Yeah.
during this time period?
So it's funny because I have found the actual field to be overwhelmingly female.
Really?
Yeah, the actual field. I
Hmm.
like when we do events and we meet, other paranormal investigators, I would say the majority of them are female. Um, However, I mean, and there's certainly males, in great numbers, but I just kind of find people who maybe delve into it are seems to be more skewed female. As far as the media goes, I think that's a different story. As with all media, like, I mean,
Right.
you know, um, and that's really, gosh, I'm trying not to sound woke, you know what I mean?
No,
But
I understand. I know. See, I understand exactly where you're going with this. And it's so important that, everybody hears this.
yeah, because it's I don't know that the depiction that we've had in media in supernatural, and that goes for everything, books, movies, television, what have you. It's always kind of portrayed as, the male star. So the male is the teacher, the female is the student. The
Hmm.
male is the leader, the female is the follower. The male is the protector, the female needs protecting. That's kind of the trajectory that it was on for a really long time. And if we're looking at like why is that? We have to understand how our society has been built. We've been conditioned to think that's how it is with gender, right? So
Exactly. Exactly.
sense that that bleeds into our media. And when we're thinking about, well, who was in charge of making those decisions 20 years ago, it was a lot of guys who were working in media and making these decisions, not exclusively, of course, but I was told to kind of highlight this. So hopefully my point gets across better. About 10 years ago, I wanted to do a show, just me as an investigator, kind of, going through these things. And a producer I was working with at the time, also a female, very good friend of mine, she was on board. She wanted to do it. But as we were talking about it, the the narrative that she was consistently getting at that time was men don't want a female lead. They don't want that. So we're not going to do it. And it struck me as odd because I'm like, well, then you're only making shows for men. Like there's a whole bunch of women and non-binary folks who would want
Exactly.
content too. So
Yeah.
making programming for them. Like why are we only making programming for one demographic? That doesn't make sense to me. Like just from a business aspect, that doesn't make sense for me. And this was many years ago, and I'm happy to say that there's been a lot of shifts. There's been a lot of women who have taken over on higher levels behind the scene. There's been a lot of, I think we've seen women be pushed more in front of the camera, in leadership roles, especially.
Hmm.
So I think there's still work to be done, obviously, but it's getting there. And I think kind of like the more we become cognizant of like, oh yeah, why is that? Why are we allowing that to happen? Like, what can we do to change that? The more that we're cognizant of it, I think the more change we'll see. Um,
I think so too. And I think a lot of the problem was, and I remember now going back a few years, why when you were still that fresh faced kid in college, which you are. I mean, honest to God, you know what? You de-evolutionize because you look better now than you ever did in your life. And I'm gonna, so I have to tell you that you should be a model, but that's just me being sexist. And
pulls out of kids in Salem,
you know what I mean, you know. But the big thing that I found was years ago when I did a couple pilots, they brought in women that were going to be strong leads, and they were dismissed within the first, when they first did the first testing. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. And the ones that I did, I realized at that point it was all about commercial value.
hmm
It was all about, well, what is this show? what sponsors is this show going to bring in? Like with me, it's like I get, they bring me on a show, and you guys rock the the AARP crowd. You guys get like the old van crowd, that sort of thing. Hey, look, we better take these pills because, listen, my arthritis is bad, but I can go golfing today. That's the type of market you're going to get with me. But a lot of that, people don't realize that that's what they're looking at, unfortunately. And I have to say that I think that, Portals of Hell, what I love about it is you and Jack are an equal playing field.
Jack is fantastic to work with. He's very, what's the word I'm looking for him? He doesn't like, he always is happy to share the work. He's always happy to share, the platform. And he's very supportive of like, making sure I'm getting credit where credit is due. And so we work really well together for a lot of reasons. We both have a twisted sense of humor, so we get along really well.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I will agree to that.
But yeah, no, he's been, I've always found him to be incredibly supportive of pushing women in front.
The first time I worked with the two of you together, yeah. I was kind of worried because it's like I had seen the show, of course, and I was like, you guys are equal. I was afraid that like I was going to get buried somewhere because you guys were like, two peas in a pot, and you almost finished each other's sentences there for a few minutes. But
yeah,
I really love the way that it's scripted out, and I think that's, I shouldn't say scripted out, but the way it's portrayed. Yeah. And I really think that that's what more shows need to be, rather than of course, when the shows were breaking in, it was the leader and the team. And now I think it needs to be smaller, just like what you're doing, the two of you, and being on equal playing fields. And I think that's starting to reflect in the fields itself, which is what I love to see. I really, that whole ego trip, the whole power trip. If I wanted that, I would have stayed in the churches, or I would have went and I would have joined a bowling league.
A bowling league. Oh my gosh, yes.
Hey, another question coming in for this. I have heard you on several occasions being referred to as the next Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Which I mean, I really have. I've talked to you know how I am. I talk to if there's a rock in the driveway, I'll talk to the rock in the driveway. But I have talked to so many people, and when they found out that, when they had seen the episode that I had done with you and Jack, they have, on several occasions, I'm not talking 1, 2, 3, like we're talking like 10 and over times, that they really referred to you as the next Rosemary Ellen Guiley. And I have to agree, because of the fact that you're multi-talented, multifaceted. You have your eye on those lofty goals of which you are obtaining daily. So when can we expect maybe a book or maybe more content out there? Because seriously, I really think that when she passed, which was a great tragedy, she left this huge hole in the paranormal and in the metaphysical worlds. And I think that somebody of your caliber would be the right person to think about. And again, nobody can step into those little tiny stomping sneakers that she used to wear.
Yeah.
But somebody like yourself should really consider being that type of a teacher. And I think I really think, Kat, I think that's probably in your future. I really do. I really think that, after you listen, I'm going to be your parent for a couple seconds. When you get that rock star stuff out of your system, you got something to fall back on. Maybe you can be a cook at McDonald's or something, or you can go and be a teacher of metaphysics and paranormal and really make a difference out there, But I really do, because I have heard that, and I think that's probably the highest praise that anybody could give anybody. And I was just blown away when I heard it. I said, and I can't argue, because I have to agree with it.
Yeah, a special lady. Very lovely, bright, shining light, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. She was just, and she was funny. And you know, she's the one that kept me in the field. Did you
What?
know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I was quitting. I had enough. I was getting, you know, I had, all those, I've had all those surgeries and stuff, and then I was getting, you know, I was getting plummeled, locally here, and I just said, you know what, I don't need this. I can just go serve churches, and I can be just as happy serving churches. And I had told Zaffis that I think I had mentioned it to him, and we were in the airport in Detroit, and Rosemary she just got off that plane, dropped her stuff, and came storming over to me. And she had these little tiny feet, and she plopped it, bop, 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 and she's like this with her finger. She's over there going, "What's this? I hear you're going to quit. You're going to retire. You're not going to retire." And I was just, I didn't know what to say. And at that point, I said, "Well, I guess if Rosemary says I shouldn't quit, I guess I'm just going to keep plodding around." But enough about me. You know what, Kat? I want to ask you this. There's a lot of people asked me, have you ever run into something that you might deem as really, and I hate using the word demonic because I don't believe
Yeah.
in demons and angels or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, have you ever found yourself almost face to face with something that really was not nice?
Mm,
That and that's a tough one, because I know when people ask me that, I don't know which way to go with it. So
yeah.
that's why I'm asking you.
On our definition of what evil is, right? So
Yeah.
we're talking about evil that manifests in people. Absolutely. I've come face to face with that a few times. If I mean, especially not only in like personal and business life, but also, there's been a couple of cases I've done where that were crime cases. And,
Hmm.
I think those have left the biggest scars on me, more so than any spiritual thing could do to me. Just seeing the hurt that people are capable of inflicting on others is
Amazing.
I mean, yeah, and especially when you go to something like a murder farm, that Jack and I did for season 2 of Portals. That was awful. And Nick and I went to a house in New Orleans where it was New Orleans, sorry, where it was murder suicide, and a very gruesome one, and that was awful, awful. So
Hmm.
I blocked that one out of my head. It actually, a fan at an event came up and asked a similar question, kind of like, what was like the worst place you ever went to? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, what about that place in New Orleans? And I was like, oh my God, I had blocked it out of my head. But as far as
Hmm.
spiritually, I'm with you. I think personally, everything in the paranormal, right? They're just terms and definitions, and they're based off of cultural and religious beliefs. And sometimes eyewitness accounts that we're trying to match up with these terms and definitions, right? But at the end of the day, we don't really know what the stuff is. We have no idea.
Exactly.
What I know is that things happen, and that they're things that can't really be explained just yet. So we have these terms and definitions, demonic being one of them. And depending on what religion you're looking at, what culture you're looking at, everybody kind of has their own version of something non-human, negative, that can kind of take over and make us do bad things, right? So if there's actually some sort of entity that does that, have I encountered it? I think there's been a couple cases that I've been on that 100% the Catholic Church would label it that way. And there might be a few other religions that would label it that way. We labeled it that way because it's the best that we have to go off of right now. So does that exist though? I would tell you that I think there are things in this world that go way beyond explanation, and that the way some of those things have manifested seem very negative and very detrimental to the person that's happening to. So in that way, it fits the criteria for what certain cultures and religious leaders would call demonic 100%. But I always kind of put that caveat out there that these are just terms and definitions we have, and we don't really know
Exactly.
what they are. But yeah, I think I've been on some cases where there's something that seems negative in nature, and that seems to have some sort of intelligence behind it.
I have to say that all the years I've done this, and I'll be 65 this year, which I
Well,
cannot. I'm about ready to throw up on every time I think about it. But it's like back when I first started, and I went to Lyceum, the Sunday school, back like in 1972 or 73, something like that. Um, Out of all the things that I've witnessed, and I mean, I went to like the early spirit rescue circles when I was a kid, and that sort of stuff. And some of the really crazy stuff that I've seen, the worst that I've ever seen was trying to go and empower a mother who had lost her son, and they found his body almost a year later. And we were trying to help her and doing contact work and that sort of stuff. And we
Mhm.
had asked her to bring something that he owned, and she brought something that was so meaningful to her that it was sacred to her. And she pulled out a bag, and I knew exactly what it was. It was an evidence bag. And she pulled it out, and it was his sweatshirt that he was found in. And you
Uh,
could still see the decomp where his the bones had stained the actual sweatshirt. And I always remember that because one of my friends, he couldn't take it. He threw up. And at that point I realized that what my teachers had told me as a kid were that you never have to worry about the dead. They can scratch you, they can push you, they can do little things like that, but it's the evil that real men do, the humans do to each other, that is truly the worst thing that can happen. And at that point, I realized it. I realized that. So, yeah, that can be I think I get a kick out of people that come up to me and tell me their demonic stories. And then right after that, I'm thinking to myself, I should tell you this story. No, I don't want to, I will hold that off to the side. Now, Kat, I got to ask you, I mean, you're always working and stuff. I loved, and I think I've told you this in the past. I love the fact that was you had done two beautiful episodes of Real Fear, and
mm.
you guys had really gotten behind the stories of like all these movies and such. Let me ask you this: how difficult was that to pierce the imaginary movie bubble and get to the truth? Was it more difficult? Could you guys actually actively research it and find the truth, or was it like, I've done a couple things locally where I tried to pierce the bubble, and the bubble is like iron, and people won't tell you what the real deal was.
Yeah.
So how was it working on that?
Well, I love the concept because I'm a horror movie fan.
Hmm.
So when that was presented to me, I was like, sign me up. I love that. Um, I I don't know that it was really difficult for the piercing of the movies at that time. This is 10 years ago. So I think the movies that we were investigating, they had been out for quite a while. So there didn't seem to be any level of protection, really. I think the biggest obstacle we came up against was when we did the movie The Poltergeist, and we talked about kind of the first time that it was shown that word was used in media in America, which
Hmm.
was I guess like the biggest platform it ever had was like in the 50s, and I think it was Life magazine, and it was based off of a real family who was going through this. They had 6 weeks of poltergeist activity, and then it stopped, and it's still an open police case to this day. And when we went to the neighborhood just to see the house, oh man, that neighborhood did not want us there. They were screaming at us. They were driving by us, screaming at us from their windows. Like they were just like, get out of our neighborhood. We don't want you here.
Oh, I could imagine.
Yeah. So, and same with Huntington, Connecticut. We just stopped off to see the house and I think just get an outside shot of the house. We met with Carmen. Carmen met us there. But the people who owned it they were not happy with our presence. Um, but I think at that time it was fine. That's what I do anyway. So I was really into it. Like when I watch a movie that's based on a true story, I'm like, is it? And then I'll like go and research it. I'm like, what's here? And so like, this just felt like, it was like what I would do anyway. So I thought it was fun.
This is something that I've wondered about you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, don't get worried, Kat. Don't get worried. I don't ask those crazy questions. Kat, when I think about what I'm going to leave behind,
Mm.
and again, you're a relatively young lady, so you don't have to worry about that for the next like 104 years.
Oh,
No, no. I'm a psychic. I know these
okay.
things. Uh, you, you know, I think to myself, I just want people to remember me as, that bald guy that, helped a couple people, connect out. And that's good enough. That's good enough for me. So, Kat, this is a difficult question.
Mm.
So, at the end of it all, what would you like to be remembered for?
Mm.
That's a hard one.
It is. Um, it's funny. I think one of our missions in this life is to leave the world better than when we entered it, and to not make people's lives harder, because life
Hmm.
is just hard enough. And so I would like to be remembered as a kind person who affected positive change, and was an advocate for things that led to positive change, you know. And I guess somebody who left the world a little better than when she came in.
Well, I can already tell you that that's already done.
Yeah.
That's done. And the reason why it's done, because I'm going to go and I think I have some extra tombstones upstairs, so I'm going to be engraving that for you,
Oh yeah.
just to let you know that, and then you can put them on the four corners of your house, so this way you're always protected. Uh, got a question from Chris here, and this is has to do with Lizzie Borden's house, and this goes back to what you were just talking about. The area around Lizzie Borden's house is pretty sketchy. Yeah, it is. It's very sketchy. I wonder if people uh, run into any issues when they're out there trying to film. I don't know. I know Jeff Belanger. He's always been up there, and I know a lot of people that have filmed up there. I haven't heard of anything really bad happening there yet, about human wise.
Yeah, hasn't trickled to me either. I've always just heard like a great place to go. I've never been.
You've never been there?
I haven't. I was gonna go, actually. Funny story. I was a girlfriend. Well, like, she's like my best friend since I was 4. She lives in Connecticut, and she just had her 4th baby this summer, and we were going up over the summer for her baby sprinkle.
Hmm.
And our other best friend, we were like, oh, well, like, let's check, because it was a surprise. So we were like, let's go up. Maybe we'll go to Massachusetts. And where she lives wasn't that far from Falls River. And I was like, oh, maybe we can get an Airbnb or something. And total side note, but the Airbnb, and be careful for this because they tried to bait and switch us, which I didn't know that was the thing that happened until it happened to us. And so I'm like, well, crap, let's try to find someplace else. And at the time, a friend of mine knows the new owners of Lizzie Borden, and so
Hmm.
they were booked, but they had these 2 basement rooms that like weren't finished yet. And they were like, you can have those if you want, but you can't like leave. Like, you can't leave your room because there's going to be an investigation going on. And we like promised them. And so like, you can have it, but you have to stay in there for like 10 hours. And like, the only bathroom was on the 2nd floor. So me and my
Oh
friend,
my God.
I don't think, I don't think we can make that work on our end. But
No.
no, but the new owners seem really lovely. I just chatted with them through email. But yeah, I'm hoping to get out there. I really want to see it.
Bucket list.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a few
Okay.
I haven't been.
Where do you really want to go? I want to ask you that.
Like,
You know what? Because maybe someday, we'll be hanging out someplace, and then like I'll win the lottery, and I'll say, you know what, Kat? I'm going to go and charter a jet.
ooh, okay.
Where do you want to go? Well, I would do that for you. I
Okay.
mean, even my wife would, because my wife's a fan, so she'd probably come along with us, of course, and we'd probably bring Batman and Winifred. So I
Yes.
mean, it would be a family affair. So and your husband. So where would you like to go if we could go anywhere?
I think I'm such a sucker for like castles, because that's like, right. Disney did that to me. So I'm such a sucker for like castles. And so I would probably like, could we tour all the castles of Europe and
Hmm.
like investigate those? That would probably be, like Tower of London would be super fun. Um, and I always advocate for Hawaii because it's warm. And I
Well, you're a Philly girl. I'm a Buffalo guy. Any place that's above 55 degrees,
yeah,
we are thrilled.
yeah, I really am so tired of like, oh, you can come, but we don't have heat. I'm like, like I get it. The old places they're expensive to restore and keep up with, but
Hmm.
I really, I definitely appreciate a warm investigation.
I'm at the point now where wherever I go, I've fallen asleep, and now I have a small electric heater and pray that I don't go and blow any of the circuits when when I'm staying overnight in these
That's not
places.
a bad idea though, Carrie. That should be part of every kit.
I think so. I think so. That
That and like
that and
a stool.
just a little one, just a little one. Yeah, nothing real fancy, and just hope that. And you know what's nice about them? You can buy the battery operated. You can buy the battery power packs just in case there's no power in there. So yeah, this is elderly elderly paranormal 101.
Yeah,
Okay, you got to have that stuff. It's
yeah,
it's 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 an unwritten rule.
yeah.
Kat, I before this is with whenever I'm with you, time goes by just so quickly.
Yeah.
Uh, what are you doing? What magic are you producing for the world in the next wherever you're going to meet up? What are your projects? What
Mm.
tell us all because those of us of inquiring minds would like to know.
Yeah. So let's see what we can talk about. Of course, there's things I can't talk about.
Well, of course, because I'm the same way. It's sort of like
It's always the way it goes. But I would say pay close attention to our social media
mhm,
because there will be announcements soon.
good.
Leave that part there. There will be announcements soon. Um, but no, there's a couple things in the works right now that I'm really excited about. Not everything I can talk about. Again, keep up with my social media because those will be announcements there. Um, my music though, which I'm really excited about. So we're working on my single is pretty much done
Yes, yes, yes.
about it. So I haven't given my final okay to send it out for final mix, but um it's like there. And then going into the studio again in April to work more on stuff. And I went in January, but I had just recovered from being sick and my hearing was off, so it was more or less just like getting the vibe of the song down and doing
It's tough, yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So I'll go in the spring to finish. A couple podcasts coming up and some other things that you guys will be hearing about soon.
Well, I can't wait because I know of a couple things, but I can't say because I know that, you know, you would hunt me down and, probably go and curse me. And the next thing I know, I would be Batman food over there. And Batman, by the way, is the name of her really beautiful little dog that I love so much. I love seeing photographs of Batman.
He's the
He is just so adorable.
He is. He's a mix, and he's a three-legged dog. He actually just went through his third surgery.
Oh, poor little guy.
It was a partial lobectomy. We had to take part of his lung. So he lost his leg, a toe, and a lung. A lung lobe, I should say.
Yeah.
So he starts chemo next week, and yeah, but he's a trooper. He's only 4, and so he's like, we're doing everything possible for him. He's the sweetest dog in the world.
Oh, yes.
And he's such a trooper. He's been through so much in his young life, and he's just like happy. And the the hospital that we take him to, they all love him. They're like, Batman, he's our favorite. And because he's been going there since before he was 1 is when he got diagnosed with cancer. So
Hmm.
been going there for a long time. And then I will tell you too, I will post it online on my social media, but I know many of us ghost hunters are very much into preservation and old houses. In the area I grew up, there is a house that they're trying to demolish. And it's essentially demolition by neglect. So the builder had bought it like over 10 years ago and has just been letting it sit and now wants to demolish it. Where we live in Pennsylvania, or where this house is in Pennsylvania, I should say, There's no requirement for an independent third party structural engineer to get involved in historically registered houses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What happens is a builder can just go in front of the court and say, hey, it's not savable. And nobody has to investigate it. So what we're trying to do is to get an independent third party review happening. And we have a petition going. So I'll post that on my social media for
Super.
yeah, because it's a really special property. It's on the nationally registered historic properties list. But you know, it's like if you follow that kind of stuff, you know that doesn't always mean everything. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in that it can't be torn down, unfortunately. So we're just trying to get somebody that doesn't stand to gain from the demolition to come in and look and see what can be salvaged. So if you guys are interested in that, I will post that online.
Super. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Kat, I can't thank you enough for stopping by, because I know, like I say, I know that you're so busy, and it's to me, it's always special when we run into each other wherever, in airports normally, as we're passing and going. You're just one of those, and I'll just come out and I'm unabashedly say again, I'm a fan guy, but I really love the fact of the way you work. I've always you, and of course, Heather Taddy. I mean, you
Ah,
could
yes.
the two of you are really two peas in a pod. And I got a chance to meet her up at Sault Ste. Marie last year. And you know what? You guys really have always been straight shooters. You guys have really worked hard in this field. And I appreciate that more than, somebody that unfortunately, you know what I'm saying, gets things handed to them.
Yeah.
And I really think that, you, and I'm not kidding you when I have said about Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and I really think that you're right up there
Thank you.
of her caliber,
Thank you. That's a
of
great.
her caliber.
Yeah.
Next, when you start doing the dumb suppers up in Salem, then I know that you are now possessed by Roe. You know what I mean? When you start doing that up there, I'm just going to go, okay, I think we have to talk now. But it's fantastic. But thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the show. Would you just stay on a couple minutes so I can just say goodbye to you, and we can just hang out for like a brief second, because I know you're probably like haven't eaten dinner because
No,
you're because you're like, like I say, you're a rock goddess. You know what I mean? People, you are in demand. Thank you so much, Kat. You're just a
no,
wonderful person.
thank you.
Thank you again. And that's my good friend, Kat. I mean, she's really a real deal. I'm so thankful that I was blessed when I met her, and it's just so nice. And what she does is just really wonderful. Guys, what can I tell you? Well, you know what? I'm just going to leave you with this. Let's pray for peace. End of story. Do what you can. Pray for peace. That's the way we're going to end it. So, guys, thank you for listening. This is Tim Shaw. Where else would you be on a Tuesday night but here at the Black Cat Lounge, where the elite meet? Where else? Next to the dumpster transfer station. We'll see you guys next week. And again, you guys honor me for just hanging out with me and listening to me prattle on like a little old lady. Ciao, babies.